Hey everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another rocket build video. In this box here that just arrived today, we've got the all-new Max-Q rockets SLS. And you're like, well, that's not new. And well, I'll tell you, it's the 1/100 scale. And then you're going to say again, well, that's not new. And I'll say, well, this one has an option to run a 3-motor cluster. That is new. If you can imagine, I've already got the motors ready. I've got 2 E12s and an F15-6. These 3 motors will be clustered together to fly the large 1/100 scale SLS. And in preparation for this, I've already got my crew ready. I've got the Artemis II crew built, painted, and ready to go. These 4 astronauts are, I don't know yet how I'm going to fit them into the rocket body, but I will. And we'll document how I configure them in the nose cone area, because I still want to have room for altimeters and, you know, the electronics and whatnot. But we do have the crew ready to go. We just got to build the rocket to do it. So we're going to get that going. So let's go ahead and get into the kit. Now, as I'm opening this, I'll give you the genesis of this. About a month ago, I flew my smaller 1/144 scale SLS, and that didn't go so well. If you remember, it was unstable and it nosedived into the ground and destroyed itself on impact. And I reached out to Randall and said, well, I'm going to order a new rocket from you. But hey, while you're at it, would you be able to maybe configure the side boosters, the SRBs, to take a motor? That way I can triple, cluster it up. And he goes, that's worthwhile trying. So we did try it. And I did film a video of that rocket, and it flew perfectly. And because that was so successful, we decided, well, let's give it a go on the larger size. So that's what we've got here. We've got let me get the paperwork out of the way here. We did have a thank you note from Max-Q. I'll show you that. So again, I guess you could say this is still an experimental project. However, we proved it successful on the smaller size. So that being said, I'm pretty confident this is going to work. Let me get the box out of the way. This is a big box, big bag, big rocket, massive rocket. And again, I am tickled to be trying out the new triple motor cluster configuration of this. This is just awesome. So let me get some stuff out of the way. I'll reconfigure my workbench and we'll come back and start assembly of the 1/100 scale Max-Q rockets NASA SLS. Okay, before we get into the actual building of the model per the instructions, I do want to go ahead and get my modifications out of the way. Like I told you earlier, I'm going to be mounting my little Artemis II astronauts. Very cool. But so in order to do that, I've decided the best place to mount them is in the transitional orange cone piece, because up in the actual nose of the rocket, this portion here, this is where I'm going to be housing my altimeter. My quasar is about this long, so it's going to take up this whole tube portion. Plus, I'm going to have to add some nose weight, I think, to offset the balance point for the heavier motors anyway. So this is definitely going to have to be delegated for the electronics. But that gives us this whole bay here to work with, and it's going to be plenty of room. In fact, if you notice, if you mount these guys, kind of like that, that fits right in there. So what I decided to do was build a little base platform. I 3D printed this little disc here, including a little notch cutout for the shock cord, because it's going to have to route through here and then out the bottom here to attach to the rocket. You might notice I did make a little mark on here. This was kind of pre-planning. Let me get a little more light here. This longer line here, that's going to be the mark at which I want to put this shock cord. And the way I came up with that was I screwed the upper portion into the cone, and, well, helps if I do it the right direction. So when this is locked down securely, I wanted the shock cord mount in line with the mark I make, because I'm going to run the shock cord from this side here, down in here, wrapped around that brace, come up the side and out that little notch. If I start crisscrossing too much, a good chance I'll interfere with the astronauts and maybe rip them off their base. So that's why I did it that way. So what we want to do, now that I've got my location for the shock cord slot referenced, we can go ahead and mount this in temporarily, and I'm going to glue these 4 blocks that I created under each of these mounting holes. So I've got my little thick CA here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this notch in line with the line I drew on the base, or I'm sorry, the transition right there. Okay, now it's going to be hard to see from overhead, but what I'm going to do is mount a block I'm going to put it down on the base and slide this into the orange cone directly over one of those holes. Okay, so let me put a little bit of thick gel CA here. Okay. I'm going to line this up. Okay. There. Right over the hole. Get some accelerator. Blast that in there. Now before we go too much further, I want to get at least 2 mounted. So I'll do this side here. I'm going to see if I can gently rotate this. Yeah, there we go. That works. Let me push this down and make sure we're still flush to the base. We are. Okay. This time I'm going to spray first. Okay, off camera, I went ahead and glued the other 4, or the other 3. No, the other 2. I did 2 on camera. So I did the other 2, so they're all in. And then I went back around and put plastic cement around the edge, the perimeter of the blocks, just to help better secure them. So now we're going to go ahead and drill and mount this plate. So again, I'm going to line up the notch with our line. Okay, there we go. I'm going to do one first and then secure it into place, and then we can use that to hold secure for the other 3. So let me go ahead and, I got a 1/16 inch drill bit. Okay, we're through. There's our hole. Let me just sort of finish it out. There we go. Okay, so there's one. Now I'm going to go back, insert this. Okay, and I've already got some small screws that I want to use with Allen heads. Okay. And that'll hold it in place while I do the other 3. Okay, I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna thread those other holes, and we'll come back and I'll show you when all 4 of these are in position. Okay, I got all 4 servo screws in. Servo screws come from the RC world, so if you're into RC airplanes, I know you got these laying around. Otherwise, just get some the smallest diameter screws you can get. These just happen to be Allen heads, so I had to use an Allen wrench, but anything will work. You can kind of see through in there. The blocks have received the screws. And now what I want to do is I want to make a permanent mark on the tube where the notch is. That'll make installation a whole lot easier next time. That way I can remove the tape. So I'm just going to put right here where the notch is with my Sharpie. Little black mark. That'll be my identifier next time I install it. So now we can go ahead and remove the screws. There we go. Clean up some of the debris. So there you have it. Didn't hit the alignment just perfectly, but well enough in the block that we've got good adhesion. So now we can remove our tape. And we are good to go. Now we can set this aside and we can work on mounting our men and women, astronauts, inside of the base, inside the base here. And again, I'm going to run it so the shock cord slot is in line with the astronauts. That way, if the cord does dangle, it'll be between the rows, and it won't, hopefully won't wrap around their necks and yank their heads off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to permanently glue the base of the Lego onto the plastic base right there. I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll come back and show you when all is said and done. Okay, I've got them glued in, and I glued the Lego brace to the pad, and then these guys, they can, come in and out. You can swap them out. If we ever have crew changes in future missions, we can always swap them out as well. And then once we get them on, again, I'm going to use that black reference mark, align it with my shock cord notch, and we're just going to drop these guys right into position. And then we'll take our 4 screws, mount them in permanently, and there they are. Nice and secure in the transitional piece of the nose cone, ready for flight. All right, now that we've got this done, now we can get to building the actual rocket as per the instructions. Okay, the next thing we want to do is anchor our shock cord to the body tube. You can see down at the bottom is a brace. We'll actually attach it from this side initially. But you want to take the supplied Kevlar and you want to cut it in half. I'm trying to get it tangled. So I'm just going to line up the 2 ends, draw them out, and right here where they are in the middle, I'm going to drop a small dab of thin CA glue. And this is how I cut my Kevlar. Because if you just cut it straight with scissors, it's going to fray and go crazy. But if you harden it with thin CA first, then you have a much cleaner cut. See how clean that was and easy? All right, so we'll set half of it aside. We don't need it just yet. But for now, we are going to go ahead and tie this off to our shock cord brace. So let me wrap this around, draw it out, and I'm going to do a slip knot. If you ever watch my videos, you know I like slip knots. To do a slip knot, you tie it like you're going to do a regular knot where you loop over and through, but then you wrap it around a second time to itself right there and pull that tight. Okay, so what you've done is created a slip knot where this can slip through as we tighten it. But first I'm going to trim off this little tail piece just a little bit. Again, I'm going to put just a dab of thin CA, kick it, cut it. Okay, now I'm going to cinch it down. See, as I pull, well, I'm gonna have to use my fingers to pinch it. I'm gonna pull it down. I'm gonna run this through actually. Okay, I'm gonna pull it as tight as I can get it. And you don't want it out in the middle of the brace because that can cause some flexing. You want to mount it as far to the side as you possibly can. That's the strongest place for it. Okay, so now I'm just going to put a drop of CA on the cord. That'll help glue it to the mount and also secure the knot. Okay, in this next step, we're going to do a few things all combined. I accidentally started doing this, I missed hitting the record button, and I already glued the chimney into the lower body tube. I used the gel CA, nothing to it. I'm going to show you the same process in the subsequent stages going up the tube. But sorry about that. I thought I was recording and I wasn't. Before I get any further though, I do want to go ahead and glue in my side booster mounts. These are just simply going to be glued right into the slots that are pre-made for you. So I'm just going to take my thick CA. I'm just going to run a bead all around the base in here. I'm going to take a mount and just fit it in. Press it all the way in. Kind of check from the back side, make sure it's all the way through. You can kind of see it in there. We got it. Okay, we'll go ahead and do the other side as well. Okay. There, it snaps right into place. Perfect. Okay, let me grab a paper towel. Got a little bit of glue on my fingers. I don't want that to transfer to the body tube, so just want to get all that cleaned up first. Okay, I'm also going to go ahead and do the same thing with this section here, only because it's going to be hard to access the inside after we glue all the sections together. So let me go ahead and get some glue going in here. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and spread that glue a little bit now that I've got access to it. Because you won't have access to it once it's already, all the stacks are glued together. Okay, now that we've got all 4 of the solid rocket booster mounts attached, I'm going to go ahead and glue in this section together and keep this as one unit, and then we'll glue all this together as one unit. Again, we want to make sure that this one with the shock cord is the top uppermost part, and we also want to ensure that our raceways are in line with one another on the sides. Okay, so I'm going to take my gel CA and just run a bead right on the inside of the base. Get this in better light for you. take our center section, and again, we just want to make sure we're ready to go here. Get the raceways close to each other. Get them in, twist. And get them in before it sets up. There we go. Okay, make sure everything's in alignment. Looks good. All right, now, this is where we want to be careful and not mix up our launch lug sides. Okay, so I'm going to get my gel. Run the bead around the base. Okay. Make sure launch lug to launch lug is correct. Line these up. Twist them till they're straight. Make sure the other side looks good. Perfect. Okay, now I'm just going to stand it up vertically and apply a little bit of downward pressure. You can't see, but I'm pushing down on it, just sort of collapsing everything in on itself. And we're just going to let that sit for a few moments and let that CA harden. And let me just show you a quick side view. This is the whole thing in its entirety. Okay, we're just going to let that set up for a little bit. Okay, now we're going to construct our SRBs while the CA is hardening on the center core. And once again, we're just going to take our gel CA, and really all you have to worry about is when you glue these portions together is making sure the one raceway is in alignment with the other. So like before, we're just going to run our CA around the base of the tube here, just like that. Find the tube. I'm going to twist a little bit and line the raceways up right there in the middle. And that's all there is to that. We'll go ahead and do the same thing on this side. Okay, grab our other tube, find the raceways. Okay, twist. Get them in alignment and press all the way around. Make sure there's no gaps, and there you have it. Now we can go ahead and work on the nose cone portion of them. Same thing. Let me set this one up. Okay, there is a raceway on one side of the nose cone, and we're just gonna have to align that up with the raceway on the side. Okay, so we'll take our glue. Okay, find the raceway. Get it started, rotate a little bit, and center it. There, just like that. Okay, do the other one. Okay, we'll let those set for a few moments, and then we'll come back and we'll do the motor mounts. Okay, now we're going to glue the motor mounts into the SRBs, but before we do, we want to glue these cardboard inserts into the end of the tube. like we did on the chimney of the center core. This is going to save the inside of the SRBs for us. So I'm going to take my thick CA, and I'm not going to do much. In fact, I think just to be consistent, I'm going to use that later, but I'm going to use some plastic cement just to be consistent. I'm going to run a bead around here. And we'll take our tube, push that in. And I'm also going to take my thin CA and just run a bead around that. Let it seep in. Okay, that's sufficient. And we'll do the same to this one. Okay. Now when we glue this into our SRBs, again, just like the earlier stages, we want to make sure we get the raceway lined up. There's only one raceway on it, so you just don't want to mess that up. But you want to line it up with the raceway that's on the tube. Let me grab my... Now this isn't going to... There's a lot of plastic here, and I don't want to oversaturate it with glue because that's just too much overkill. So I'm going to kind of put this in a little bit. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm thinking on the fly here. I really don't want to risk that locking up on me, so I'm going to use the cement. Because if it locks up and it's not straight, there's not much we can do at that point. Okay, so let me slide this in. There we go. Okay, got it. See how we got the raceways lined up? Okay, so we're done with that one. We'll do the same to this side. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so gonna let those set up for a little bit because the cement dries a little slower than the CA does. So we'll let that set up, and then we'll come back and we'll glue these onto the center core. Okay, the SRBs are now dry, and the key is to when you glue the SRBs into the mounts, it's pretty simple. They just sort of drop right in, pop into place. But when you glue them in, you want to ensure that the raceways are pointing directly out away from the center core. And then also you want to go ahead and screw on your motor mount. I just have the screw in cap to cover the motor, but this needs to be on in order for this to glue flush. This is going to glue down. Let's see if I can. this needs to be flush with the black engines. So once we glue this in, we're going to set it vertically, and they're both going to be touching the base, and that's going to give us that perfect alignment at the bottom. Okay, so that's the key to the SRBs. Let me go ahead and pop these out. And I'm going to run a small bead of thick CA. Okay, got the clog taken care of. We'll go ahead and run a bead along this band here. And we'll do the same on the forward one. And we'll just do one at a time. So I'm gonna stand this up now. That way I ensure I get the raceways in alignment and we're flush at the bottom. And this just simply snaps right in. Okay. I'm not going to touch it for a bit. I'm just going to let that glue harden and set, and then we'll come back and do the other side. Okay, now we're going to attach the shock cord to the upper portion of the body tube. I'm going to take the other half of the cord that we cut in half earlier, and if you remember earlier, I mentioned that I want to ensure that our slot that we made in our base is on the same side as where it's glued on the brace. So I went ahead and screwed it down to see which side of the brace we need to work with, and it's going to be this side right here. So I put a little small piece of tape because that is the side where the notch is cut out. So now I can go ahead and remove this. You can see the crew in there. They're doing some pre-flight testing, we'll call it, but we don't need that at the moment. So now I'm going to take my cord and I'm going to feed it up one side and then back down the other side. And once again, I'm going to create a slip knot. There, in fact, I made it short so I wouldn't have to cut any off at all. Okay, so now I'm going to see if as you pull it, the knot goes down. And let's see, which side do we want to work with? This side here. So we're going to drag it to this side. I'm going to kind of hold it in there with my finger. Slide it down. Okay, I'm going to take some thin CA. I'm going to put it on both the knot and the brace. That'll keep it in position. We'll kick that off with some accelerator. Perfect. Now, one thing I did not do, and I'll do it on the other side too, but you want to take the end of each of your shock cords and we want to make a double knot because that's how we're going to attach the elastic, which I've got right here. This is going to attach to each loop on each side of the shock cord. So let me just go ahead and tie a double knot, a little loop knot here. And just a dab. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on but you know, I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to, I don't have one here, I'm going to have to go out in the shop and grab one, but I'm going to put a swivel hook on this side. That way I can detach this if I ever need to work on this separately. I can put the eye hook on here, or the swivel, and that way I can just connect or disconnect at that juncture if I need to. So let me go get one and we'll do that next step, and we'll also tie the knot in the other shock cord. Okay, while we're waiting for the glue to dry on the inner core and the SRBs on the side, we're going to go ahead and attack the fin set right now. I'm going to use a combination of plastic cement and some thin CA glue. I'm going to use the plastic cement more or less on the fin in the inner section where it sandwiches in here. You'll see how that fits in like that. And then we'll go around the edge with the thin CA. Hopefully it'll seep in and cover anything that the cement will miss. So let's go ahead and take our cement, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the leading edge, the front end of each fin, so as it slides in, it's going to help disperse and push the glue out into the surrounding areas. At least that's our goal in theory, is to achieve that. So I'm going to go ahead and run some cement there and there. I don't want to go all the way out because that's just going to be excessive and too much. And then I'm going to set it, see if I can kind of open this up a little bit. There we go. And go ahead and place it on the bench flat, push it into position. Just like that. And then we'll go around the perimeter with just a drop of CA and let it wick in and do its job. Do one drop back here. Okay. We'll go and do the other side. Okay, one fin down. Let's go ahead and do the other three. Okay, the fins are all done. You can see here all four are glued and secured. And I'm hoping that there's enough flex in this plastic, which it seems to be, that they'll be pretty durable on landing. And they're thick enough, I think they'll withstand the speed of the ascent. Shouldn't be any cracking or splitting of them, so we should be good there. So those are good. Now I'll show you what I did off camera earlier. Was I did attach the elastic cord through both, well, the bottom end of the loop, and then I attached a snap swivel to the top. So this is what's actually going to connect the upper stage portion through this loop here. So now the upper and lower are attached, and I'll go ahead and attach the crew as if we're going to be flying them on the mission. We'll screw that top portion in. We'll take our crew of astronauts, make sure they're secured, although I'll do this again before we ever fly it. But so they're secured. Okay, we're going to run this from the bottom. Let me put the shock cord in alignment with that little black mark that we made earlier. And I'm going to find our notch that we made in the base right there. And we're going to slip this unit in, get the cord through the notch. They should pop into place. I'll just put one screw in for now, temporarily. Okay, don't want to over tighten it because you can strip the plastic threads. Okay, so for now I'm just going to bundle this up and shove it into the inner core here. Not the way you do it for flight, but just to hold it for now. Get everything in there. And we'll go ahead and slip that in. Just like that. And with that, we pretty much have a completed SLS. See if I can show on the camera from this side looking. I can't quite get the angle on camera, unfortunately. The rocket's just too big. But you can kind of see up in the corner there, the astronauts are... I can barely get the angle. But they're there, all set for flight. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I will complete putting all 4 screws in the base. I will get the engines loaded into the tail because we need to do a CG check. So I'll get them loaded and mounted, and then we'll come back and we'll balance it, and we'll more than likely have to add some nose weight. In fact, I know we will. So we'll get the clay ready for that, and we'll go from there. Okay, a couple things. One, I removed the upper stage just for now because it's big and bulky. And for the CG purposes, I am not going to have the crew installed because I may not want to fly it. And if I do, I don't want to remove them and then the rocket end up tail heavy. So I'm going to balance it without them in there. When we do decide to add them later, that's okay. A little extra nose weight isn't going to hurt anything. But we definitely don't want to come up tail heavy. So installing the motors is very easy. The 2 outboard SRB motors, they are friction fit. So easiest thing to do is just take some masking tape, wrap it around the engine body, and slip it into the engine, and you'll feel the resistance there. Just enough to hold it so when it's vertical, they don't fall down. On ejection, they will blow themselves out, which is good because that's even less weight that the rocket's going to be coming down under parachute, which should give you a little bit slower descent. Okay, so for the main core engine, the F, I'm going to unscrew this cap that I temporarily installed the nozzles on with. Okay, we're going to take our F motor. I'll be running an F15.6. If you're flying it as a single engine without the clustered, do an F15.4. But with the extra speed we're going to have built up from the boosters, I'm going with a 6-second delay on this flight. So I'm going to slip our F15-6 in. I'm going to take the nozzles. This is for display only. Okay, we're going to take our fin can and our engine retainer. Okay, so we're going to slip this. Actually, it's probably easier if I put this in first. And then thread that on and thread that into the mount. A little fiddly on the desk, it's hard to do. It'll be a lot easier once we get it out on the range. Okay, well that'll hold it for us. Okay, so there you can see now, that's the way it's going to stand. 3 boosters even with each other coming out the bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to go get a stand that'll hold it horizontally, and we can do our CG check. Okay, even though the rocket is pretty much complete, I still need to add the decals. What you're looking at here is my original 1/44th scale SLS that has flown. This is the one that we did the 3-motor cluster with more recently. But I want to discuss center of gravity with you. Center of gravity is one of those things that it's really acknowledged by the experienced rocketeers, but it's overlooked by beginners. And I want to really emphasize the importance of understanding center of gravity and the pursuit of achieving a properly balanced rocket. The new SLS is exactly scaled up from the original 1/44th. Dimensionally, everything's the same. But the key is we had to find the balance point on the original one to get that good flight that you saw recently. And because of the 2 extra motors in the back end here, that did require substantial amount of nose weight up in the nose cone. However, the amount of extra thrust produced by the extra 2 engines more than covered the extra weight. That was not an issue. But we had to get that weight up in the nose to get the rocket to fly stable because of the additional tail weight. Now, through trial and error, we did finally come up with a good balance point, and I want to show you how we did it on the smaller rocket and then how I converted that to large ones. So let me bring the small one in here, and going back and forth quite a bit with Randall for Max Q, doing different testing and different weight configurations. We found that if you were to get the rocket balanced with the motors ready to fly, now I don't have any motors in here right now, so I can't do a true balance for you, but with the motors installed in the tail, all three of them, we determined that the perfect balance point for the small rocket was 180 millimeters from the base of the SRB. So let me slide this down where you can see a little bit better. Okay, you can see the base of the SRB here. If I put the ruler at the 0 mark and you come up to 180 millimeters, that puts us just above the 5th rib in the SRB, about halfway through the letter N. So right here, so if you count the ribs up, there's a rib, 3, 4, and 5. And just a little bit past that 5th rib was where we found the perfect balance point. Now again, right now it's falling to the nose because there's no weight in the tail. But with the motors in the back, that balanced beautifully. Then when you add in the extra weight up front, if you have an altimeter or a camera or any nose weight, that will increase the stability of the rocket. Okay, so knowing that 180 millimeters up from the base was the prime balance point. Let me get a longer ruler. I get a yardstick here because I'm going to need some extra length here. But I want to show you the overall length of the entire SRB. Okay, so from the nose down here on the right, lining that up at 0, the base of the SRB comes right at 375 millimeters. So if you take the 180, divide that by the 375, we get 0.493333, basically 49%. So the balance point is 49% of the way up the SRB. That's the magic number, 49%. So if you set the small one aside and use that same ratio, 49%, you take the larger rocket here, measure the overall length of the SRB. Now this is not going to fit, but you got to trust me. I'm lining the yardstick up at the tip of the SRB, and it comes out to 500. It's way down here. 540 millimeters. The entire length of the SRB. Okay, so 540. What's the magic number from earlier? 49%. So 49% of 540 comes out to be 266 point change millimeters. So I can get the big stick out of the way. That's kind of hard to work with. So if you take 266 millimeters from the base, that puts us right about, see zeros at the base. 266 brings us right up to about here. And if you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ribs. So the scale is correct. So now we know that right here is our balance point. If I did this already, but if you need to balance a little mark or something, put a piece of masking tape or something. You don't want to mark on your clean tube, but just put a piece of masking tape. That'll be your balance point. And if you notice, I do have the motors in the back. Let me see if I can turn this around. You can see I've got them in there. So now if I let go, my finger's underneath, okay, it's teetering back and forth right at that point. So we know we've got the right balance point. Now in order to do that though, let me stand this up and I'm going to remove the nose cone. I'll show you what's going on up here at the top of the rocket. In order to achieve that balance with the motors installed, I had to install clay. That's a combination of yellow and white in case you're wondering. But it turned out to be 2 3/4 ounces of clay in the nose. In fact, you can kind of see the shadow. It filled up pretty much that whole top portion right there. Now, that you would say, yeah, that's substantial weight, and it is. However, when you're running 3 motors, an F and 2 E's, you're more than compensating enough for that extra weight. I'm going to show you a breakdown here on the screen of what the weights are of the entire rocket, the payloads associated with that, as well as the liftoff weight maximums on these 3 motors. So let's switch to that and I'll show you a breakdown of the weights. Okay, I want to do a final wrap up with you here. Since we did the balance, the CG and everything, I went ahead and put on all the decals. If you can put on all the decals on an SLS, it doesn't matter what kit, MaxQ, Estes, well, I don't think they make a kit, but whoever. Any time you put decals on for an SLS, it is a true test of internal mental fortitude. I've done many of these, by the way. Every one of the squares, every one of the roll patterns, just to show you this. Every one of these, yes, on both sides, all the way down to the bottom. If you enjoy decals, as I do, it's not that bad. But you just have to devote the time to it and not get frustrated and just stick with it. If you need to take a break, take a break. There's no rule saying you have to do them all in one shot. Okay, let me get off my little decal soapbox. I guess maybe because I've done so many of these now that it would be nice if you didn't have to. But that's all part of the hobby. I'm just being sarcastic and silly. But I do want to go over one more thing with you, and this is exciting for me, and I hope it's exciting for you in preparation for the first flight. I'm going to go ahead and explain this to you while I show you a picture of the rocket in full, and I'm going to put an overlay on and explain what we're dealing with as far as weights go and maximum performance of the motors. So while I explain this and show the picture, I'm going to go ahead and start installing our little guys. You can see I've done a little bit modification. I did install a cross brace that I can wrap rubber bands around to act as seat belts because I'm sure on ejection there's going to be a lot of violence inside the cabin, and these guys can jar loose, so those rubber bands should help keep them in place and from rattling around the canopy too much. That being said, I'm going to now show the overlay. Here's the rocket built up in its entirety, and I want to go over the numbers with you. I was a little concerned at first about whether or not, with all the extra weight that I had to put in the nose cone, plus the weight we're going to have with our payload, the astronauts, the altimeter, the onboard camera, there's a lot of things. And, of course, the engines themselves, because they're very large and heavy engines. So I wanted to do a little calculation here, and I just wanted to point out that if you go to the Estes website or any company that makes engines websites, they should show the specifications for each motor. And Estes is no exception to this rule. I did go to their website and looked up the F-15 motor, and the F-15 has a maximum liftoff weight, that's one single motor, can lift 482 grams of weight. Okay, now let's backtrack, okay? That is a lot of weight it can pick up, but it's not enough for this rocket as it sits. The rocket, with the engines, with the nose weight, is 742 grams, okay? 742 grams. Now, you do need a parachute, obviously. I have a 48-inch apogee parachute that weighs 82 grams. My crew of astronauts, the little Lego guys, that whole setup weighs 34 grams. The egg timer, quasar altimeter, and the battery that goes along with it weigh a total of 49 grams. And the little Mobius onboard camera that's mounted to the side weighs 22 grams. So all up, liftoff weight, ready to fly on the pad is 929 grams. Okay, total liftoff weight of the vehicle, 929 grams. Okay, what's the liftoff weight capability of the motors that we're running? The F-15, as I mentioned earlier, can lift 482 grams. Okay, the E-12s that's going to be out on the outboard SRBs, each can lift off 454 grams each. So that's a total of 908 grams lifted just by the E's themselves. Okay, so the total liftoff, maximum liftoff weight is 1,390 grams. compare that to the rocket's all-up weight of 929. I'm very excited about how this first flight's going to go. We more than exceed the liftoff weight in thrust alone. The balance is set perfectly, plus a little extra weight now with our payload. That's going to make it more stable. Now, if we fly in zero wind condition, that's going to make for a perfect flight. So, just wanted to show that to you. Okay, back to the rocket. I did nothing other than read off those stats to you while I was going over the numbers. So I still need to install the crew. All right, so let me go ahead and install them. Okay, remember the notch goes to the black mark. I'm going to try to get the cord over here. Slip these little dudes in. There. I'll speed through this for you. Okay, I've got the base in. All the astronauts are in and secure. Let's do a quick check on them. Make sure they can still breathe in there. All's good. Everybody in there? Yep. Everyone's secure. Good to go. Okay, we'll get this tightened back up. Okay. Now there is something I would like to go over with you on the back end of the rocket. So in the time being, let me go ahead and shove all of our shock cord into the tube. Get the nose installed. Okay. I'm going to slide this down this way as best I can. Balance my saddle so the weight's better distributed. One thing I noticed when I was testing my fin installation, but here's what I found with my particular kit. Let me take off the display engine nozzle set, and I'm going to install the fins just as they would be if I'm going to fly it. So let me take my F motor, slip it in, take my fin can and the screw-on retainer cap, thread it in. And I did this earlier, you may have noticed, and I did some investigating later, but there's just no way I could fix it. As much as I tighten this up, it bottoms out on the motor. I've got about 2 millimeters gap between the fin and the base, and the fins won't tighten up. Now, I'm fortunate to be able to have access to a 3D printer, so I was able to go and create and print out my own 2 millimeter washer. This little spacer right here goes between the fin and the bottom of the rocket tube, and then that will cover up that 2 millimeter gap. Now when I tighten this down, fins are secure. Now, if you don't have access to making something like that, you can easily make and fashion up your own spacer with a piece of balsa wood, cardboard, cut out a piece of plastic, a thick plastic, bore out a hole in the middle. You can make your own spacer. It's not difficult. I just elected to do it the easy and cheaper way by printing up my own, but that's just what I had access to. If you have access to it, by all means, do it. Nice, clean. And hopefully you won't even have that issue to worry about in the first place. I just ended up with a kit that has a little bit off on the threading and it wouldn't go any further. So that was my experience. But that absolutely finishes up this build. There's really nothing else to do other than let the decals dry. And I did put a coat of clear floor polish, which is my clear choice of clear finish because it's easy, dries quickly, and it's good on the plastics, and it will adhere these decals down nicely. All of my Max Q rockets, I've gone over the decals with the floor polish. And if you're not sure what I use, I did a video a ways back. You can dig through my archives and find out. It's the, I want to say Holly Shine might be the company, but it's called Quick Shine. You can pick it up at Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. It's a green and white bottle. And tell you what, instead of just talking about it, let me show it to you. Right here. I said Holiday. It's Holloway House, actually. That's the company. But Quick Shine multi-surface floor finish. It dries in about 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, it's really that quick. Leaves a nice gloss coat as well as sealing the decals down to the plastic. But the decals do stick by themselves well enough, but just for added safety and the speed that these fly at, I wanted something more to hold them down with. So with that, everybody, I want to thank you so much for watching. I want to thank Randall over Max Q Rockets for designing such superb flying rockets. I know a lot of people are buying them. A lot of people are enjoying them. And yeah, go get one for yourself. They're a lot of fun. They're, again, interchangeable. You can do single stage motors. You can do triple clusters with an F and 2 Ds or an F and 2 Es. You can, mix it up a little bit. And as you saw, the weight versus the thrust of the motors, because of the different variations of motors you can do with this and the weights that are involved, you have more than enough thrust per the weight of the rocket to get it flying nice and high, have a lot of fun with it. With that, everybody, I want to thank you so much for watching. God bless, and we'll see you at the launch site.